Hi and welcome to story time and happy holidays. Our stories today are going to be all about snow and the holiday season. Our first book is a brand new book that came out just this December called Santa in the City, written by Tiffany Jackson and illustrated by Reggie Brown. Every year, Deja counted the days, hours, minutes, seconds until Christmas. But some kids at school didn't believe in Santa like she did. If there's a Santa, how does he get into your apartment when there's no chimney? Deshawn asked. That sleigh can't fit nowhere and reindeer can't fly. And no one can live up at the North Pole, Carmen said. Face it, Deja, there's no Santa. Even if there was, he'd never visit us in the city. That night, Mama found Deja in her room crying. What's wrong, Deja? Mommy, tell me the truth. Is there really a Santa Claus? Of course there is, baby girl. But how does Santa get inside our house if we don't have a chimney? Mommy smiled. Deja, magic always finds a way. Come, let me show you. She took Deja down to the first floor where Mr. Clark was painting the front door. She pointed to the big keychain hanging off his tool belt. Santa's got a special keychain like our super, Mr. Clark. His key is magic and opens up all the apartments in the entire world. Oh, Deja said. Makes sense. But where does he park his sleigh? There's no free parking spots on our block at night, and ain't none of them big enough for 9 reindeer. Mommy laughed. He parks on the roof just like he does at everyone else's house. She took Deja by the hand and led her up to the top floor, pointing to the roof door. See, Mommy said, Santa comes in through here. She showed Deja where Santa parked his sleigh and the old pigeon feeder Mr. Clark used to give the reindeer a snack. Oh, Deja said, makes sense. Satisfied, Deja took the stairs back down to her apartment. As Mommy tucked her into bed and read her favorite Christmas book, Deja smiled. Deshawn and Carmen were wrong. Santa did come to their city. But the next morning, as Deja left for a day of Christmas shopping with Mommy, she couldn't help noticing how different her neighborhood looked from the ones in her book. The buildings in her block didn't seem ready for Christmas. She tugged on Mommy's coat. If we can't decorate our building, how will Santa find us? The mayor puts up extra special lights all around the neighborhood, Mommy said, and we always put lights in our windows so Santa won't miss us. Oh, Deja said, makes sense. But as soon as they walked to the corner bodega, another question popped into Deja's head, and then another, and another. She almost didn't hear Mr. Orris say her breakfast sandwich was ready. Hey, little mommy, what's on your mind? Mr. Orris asked. Mr. Orris, can reindeer really fly? See, mommy, they're just like chickens. They can fly short distances, hopping from block to block till they reach our block. Oh, Deja said, makes sense. But even later that afternoon, as Deja and Mommy finished shopping, her head was so full of questions she thought she might burst. She pointed to Santaland and asked, okay, how can Santa be at King's Plaza, at Macy's, and up at the North Pole making our presents all at the same time? Well, those men are special elves representing Santa. They listen to the wishes of all the little kids around the world and report back to the big boss, old Saint Nick. Oh, Deja said. Makes sense. The next day was Christmas Eve, and Deja's entire family gathered at her aunt's house where they had a big feast. She played games with her cousins and danced with her uncles like she did every year, but it was hard to enjoy herself like she used to. She still had so many questions about Santa, and luckily there were a lot of people around to ask. Uncle Ronnie, how can Santa live up at the North Pole? It's really cold up there, Deja asked. Well, Santa works in tunnels underground like the subway where it's much warmer. Plus, he drinks plenty of cocoa. Oh, Deja said, Makes sense. What about when we visit Grandma and Pop in Jamaica? We're in a whole other country. How does he find us there? Oh, that's easy, her Auntie Casey said. Your mommy sends him a postcard to tell him where we will all be. Oh, Deja said. Makes sense. Back at home, Deja left milk and cookies for Santa, but her head still swirled with questions, like where do other kids put their stockings if they don't have a fireplace? Or how does Santa make it to all their cities in one night? Or has he ever delivered presents to the wrong house like the mailman sometimes does? Doesn't Santa's tummy hurt after eating all the cookies everyone leaves him? She asked Mommy. Santa doesn't eat all the cookies, Mommy said. He eats some, but he has a magic sack he puts the rest in so he can share with the elves when he gets back to the North Pole. I've even packed them up for him. You mean you've met Santa? Yep. He asked grown-ups to help since he has lots of stops to make in one night. Oh, she said. That gave Deja an idea. After Mommy tucked her into bed, Deja pretended to go to sleep because there was only one person who could answer all the questions, Santa himself. She waited until her mommy was asleep before sneaking out into the living room, but she couldn't stay awake. She didn't hear Santa park his sleigh on the roof, or see him come down the stairs, or use his magic key to open the door, or leave out the toy she asked the special elves for. But when she woke up, she found something better than any toy, a special message from Santa just for her, letting her know once and for all magic really does find a way. Santa was real, and he had no problem coming to her city. And that is the end of that one. Our next one is 10 Ways to Hear Snow by Kathy Camper and illustrated by Kenya Pack. What do you think snow sounds like? Next time it snows, listen very carefully and see what you can hear. When Lena woke up, everything was quiet. No cars honked, no buses chugged, no garbage trucks gulped trash across the street. Snow! Last night's blizzard was gone, leaving the city muffled and white. But today was a grape leaf day, when Lena would help her grandma make warwick inab. City was losing her eyesight, and Lena loved helping her cook. I want to tell City all about the snowstorm and make sure she's okay. The snow's so deep, Lena's mom said. We could go with you, Lena's dad offered, but Lena wanted to go to Cities by herself. Stay warm, Habati, her dad told her. Lena bundled up. Outside, the sun on the snow was bright white as a light bulb. Lena squinched her eyes and pulled her scarf over her nose. She could barely see. I wonder if this is how City feels, Lena thought. The world sounded softer, but the noises she heard were clearer. Scrape, scrip, scrape, scrip. What was that? It was Mrs. Watson's shovel digging out the sidewalk. That's one way to hear snow, Lena thought. Lena walked down the street. Snick, snick, snuck. The noise was low to the ground. What was that? It was the treads of Lena's boots, crunching the snow into tiny waffles. 2 ways to hear snow. Lena ducked under a pine tree. Ploof! A powdery sound. A blue jay on a branch had knocked down snow. 3 ways to hear snow. Lena counted. She listened for more. Swish, 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 swish. What was that soft, whiskery noise? People were sweeping snow off their cars. Their brushes made the 4th way to hear snow. Lena cut across the park. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. Another snow noise? Lena saw long, skinny tracks made by her boots. Ahead of her, people were skiing. Their skis made the fifth way to hear snow. Rachid and Miriam were building a snowman. Pat, pat, pat. What was that? It was Mittens smoothing the snowman's head. The gentle sound made the sixth way to hear snow. As Lena walked away, her friends whispered and laughed. Thwump! Oh no! Lena ran way fast from the seventh way to hear snow. Lena reached City's building, all out of breath, her boots covered with white powder. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Lena giggled. She was making the eighth way to hear snow. Hello, Lena, the lady in the lobby said. Go on in. She pointed to Lena's grandma's room. Lena tapped on the door. Surprise, City! It's me! I came to make grape leaves with you. Lena threw her coat and mittens on the radiator to dry. Wonderful! The lamb and rice are ready, City said. Yalla, I can't wait, Lena shouted. Let's get started. Lena raised the grape leaves and placed them on towels. Put some filling in the center, roll them up, and put them in the pot, City instructed. They're like grape leaf cocoons, Lena said, looking at them piled on the plate, or lots of little sleeping bags, City replied. Ha, mine looks like a mustache, Lena said, and held her stuffed grape leaf under her nose. City held hers under her nose, too. That's good, she wrinkled up her face and said, we look like a couple of real tough guys, in a tough guy voice. City, did you know we had a blizzard last night? Of course. Lena was surprised. How could her grandma know when she couldn't see very well? Then she heard a noise. Drip, drip, went the mittens. It was the sound of snow melting. 9 ways to hear snow. Suddenly, Lena understood how City knew. City, did you hear snow? City smiled. Each morning I open the window and listen. Today everything sounded hushed and soft. No noise is the sound that means it's snowing. City, I listened too. I heard snow 9 different ways. Shovels were 1, boots were 2, blue jay was 3. Slow down, Hippity. I want to hear them all, but right now, shh. City went to the window and opened it again. Listen, she said. Outside, the late blue afternoon was completely still. Quiet is the 10th way to hear snow. Our next book is one of my favorite Christmas stories. And it is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from the cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew. All the Who Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for the toys, and then, oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, sing, sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this whole Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. Then he chuckled and clucked, what a Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up! And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air, all the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed into the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. He stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed up all the food up the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then all the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, it sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville, and the Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another it came, just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Well, thank you for coming to story time, and we'll see you after the new year. Bye, and happy holidays.